Oh, hello. We didn't see you there.
Today on the World Daily News, our topic here is the Berlin Crisis. The date today is May 8th, 1945. My name's Gabby. This is my partner, Elle.
Yeah.
Take it away, Elle.
So, today, May 8th, Berlin is divided into four sectors, which include the American, British, and French in the west, and
The Soviet in the East.
exactly.
From the end of World War II in 1945, the question of Berlin's status of Germany among the community of nations is still a source of tension between the East and West.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Ça va?
Oui, ça va.
That means hello. How are you in French?
Today on the World Daily News, our topic here is currency, airlift, and missiles. It is currently the summer of 1948. So, Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, tried to take advantage of American concern over missiles to solve West Berlin's problems. The Berlin blockade was an attempt this summer by the Soviet Union to limit the ability of France, Great Britain, and the United States to travel their sectors of Berlin of East Germany. And there's also a new currency in all of Germany, and the DM is in West Germany, or the D-Mark, and then the D-Notenbank is in East Germany.
Alright, so I was here first. Can I get this?
Sure, that's $1.
Here.
We don't take that here.
Well, then can I get it with this?
Yes.
Sick. Currently, the Russians are closing all highways, railroads, and canals from Western occupied Germany into Western occupied Berlin. They believe that this would make it impossible for the people who live there to get any food or other supplies, and will eventually drive Britain, France, and the United States out of the city for good. Instead of retreating from West Berlin, however, the United States and our allies decided to supply sectors of the city from the air. This effort has been given the name the Berlin Airlift, and will last for at least a year, and is expected that we will carry more than 2.3 million tons of cargo into West Berlin.
Good morning. Welcome back to the World News Daily. Today's topic will be new government and deadlines. Today's date is May 1959. So, in 1949, the Federal Republic of Germany in West Germany was established, and in 1949, the same year, the Democratic Republic of East Germany was established. So, last year, on November 10th, Nikita Khrushchev made a speech in which he demanded that the Western powers of the U.S., Great Britain, and France pull their forces out of West Berlin within the next 6 months to have a free, demilitarized city. And then, 6 months later, in 1959, the Soviet Union withdrew its deadline and met with the Western powers in a Big Four foreign ministers conference. After this, Khrushchev visited the U.S. in September with Eisenhower at Camp David, causing tensions to be somewhat eased. Eisenhower started the discussion of Berlin on September 26, explaining that Berlin was of deep concern not only for the U.S. government, but for the U.S. citizens.
Welcome back to our show. Eisenhower felt that once the tensions over Berlin had been resolved, the U.S. and Soviet Union could begin productive dialogue and progress on lots of other issues. So they wanted to keep talking about other issues and finally resolve something. He stated that the U.S. did not want to continue to maintain an occupation force in Berlin forever, and agreed that the existing situation should be corrected.
Welcome back to the World News Daily. The year is currently 1960. Last episode, Eisenhower stated that all outstanding international questions should not be settled, not by the application of force, but by peaceful means through negotiations. Khrushchev believed that an agreement with the U.S. over Berlin was possible, and they ended up meeting in Paris last week and agreed to continue the dialogue. But this didn't turn out as expected because the Soviets ended up shooting down an American U-2 plane. Oh, there you are. I haven't seen you in a year. It's 1961 now. John F. Kennedy was elected into presidency last year in 1960. This year is 1961, and the presidency of last year angered Khrushchev, who fired off more implied threats about Berlin. This year, Khrushchev told Kennedy he wanted to sign a separate peace treaty with East Germany, and this would start the nullification of the old Soviet-Allied agreement, guaranteeing road, rail, and air access into Berlin. In order to access rights to Berlin, this would be up to the East Germans, who would probably most likely deny access. Kennedy, however, did not back down. In a July 25th address to the nation, the president ordered increases in American missile forces, 5 new Army divisions, and more of the nation's air power and military services. He declared a willingness to use American military force to defend its rights to access Berlin.
Thousands of refugees escaped to West Berlin each day, which really embarrassed the USSR. So in 1961, Khrushchev closed the border and ordered the construction of a wall to stop people from leaving. People leaving the East proved basically that communist way of life is worse than capitalism.
Hey, don't mess with it. Bro, chill. Bro, chill. Sit down. Sit down.
Welcome back to the World Daily News. Today's date is August 13th, 1961, the day that the Berlin Wall was built. So this morning, people woke up to the sound of rumbling and heavy machinery on their streets towards the line that divided the eastern and western parts of the city. Citizens of East Berlin left to West Berlin. Khrushchev needed to stop the flow of refugees, so he put up this wall, which was equipped with barbed wire, floodlights, minefields, machine gun towers, dog patrols, literally anything to keep his people in. Most left to escape communism, fearing growing economic hardship and political recession. The wall was put up because the loss of population led to economic problems. East couldn't lose all their citizens. Anyone who worked in West Berlin but lived in East Berlin had to quit their job because they couldn't go back and forth between the East and West, being that there was a wall. They cut all telephone wires so you couldn't communicate with people from the West or East side.
So, Bomb, why aren't you working for us anymore? You're supposed to be bringing in cash.
Well, I can't really make it over to the west side considering the blockade cut me off from my job.
Well, now what are we gonna do?
You tell me, Fred.
Khrushchev tried to grow more agricultural goods but wasn't successful. Increased military spending and the failure of agricultural growth hurt the Soviet economy. What's up? It's 1989. We're all free now. The Berlin Wall is just taken down. This is the World News Daily. So, people already knew that authorities would back down. A month earlier, peaceful protesters in Leipzig had turned out in such an overwhelming number that security forces just backed off. When one of the most loyal subordinates, a Stasi officer named Harald Jaeger, who was working the November 9th night shift, a fellow officer called him delusional coward for, telling other officers that the protesters were becoming violent. I don't know. So, insulted, furious, and frightened, he decided to let the crowds out, starting a chain reaction that swept across all the checkpoints that night. So all across the entire Berlin Wall, all the officers just started letting the crowds out. I don't know. And in the end, the United States, United Kingdom, and France replied to the ultimatum by really letting them know their determination to remain in and to maintain their legal right to free access to the entirety of Berlin.
Get your facts right. So maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't, but the Berlin Wall was 2 walls. It was 27 miles long, and the barrier separating Berlin into East and West Berlin, Germany, consisted of 2 concrete walls, between which was the death strip, as they called it, which was up to 160 yards wide, that contained hundreds and hundreds of watchtowers, miles of anti-vehicle trenches, guard dogs, floodlights, and tripwire machine guns.
Get your facts right. The wall can be yours if you didn't know it. Who knows if you knew it? But it took nearly a year for East and West Germany to become officially reunified. Meanwhile, wallpeckers chipped away at the concrete fortification and took pieces away for souvenirs and memorials. You can even buy a piece off eBay. I'm Gabby, and this is Elle.
And so, like, our show is kind of done. It's kind of done. Like, I'm getting defensive because the show is done and the government cut funding. So, bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in for, like, what?
7 years.
7